official now that Anna proposed.
Patricia,
Yes,
hey, hey, how you doing?
great. How are you?
We all left.
Good.
Everybody else is gone.
What did Dale say?
He said we all left.
Oh, okay. How are you all doing for quorum for approving the agenda?
We got it.
Okay, I can still be there. I'll be there about 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Then I'll just see you when I get there.
Okay, we'll officially call the Recipient Rights Advisory Committee to order. And we have a suggested motion to approve the December 19, 2022 meeting agenda for this meeting.
Second.
We might need a first.
Dave gets it. Give it to Dave.
I got it. My dyslexia.
I just announced it.
Okay.
Any questions on that agenda for today? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Next, we'll need a motion for our minutes from September the 26th.
So moved. Sorted.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comment. Do you have anybody online for public comment?
No one is indicating as much. I have seen no hands.
Well, there'll be another opportunity for public comment towards the end of our meeting, but I think I'd like to have everybody know who's joining us here today as a new board member. Chris Clangens. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining the board. And you got Sparty colors on, so I was going there with that.
Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Pay the bills.
All right. Good. Well, welcome again. So, new business, Holland Hospitals, 2022 annual report.
Jen is online, I believe. Jen, did you want to project?
I can go through our numbers or I can share screen and show you the report. What do you prefer?
As long as you can share the screen, that's workable.
Give me a moment to get that.
It's always good to have visual aids.
It's 85, right, Rich? In here.
How's that? Are you able to see it?
Not quite yet. Give us a moment. Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So my name's Jen Mayo. I'm the recipient rights advisor here at Holland Hospital. I report to this board once at the end of the year for our annual report. Brianna is also in receipt of this report for Ottawa County we send Holland Hospital's report to Brianna. So for our annual report, we had 39 complaints. We had 22 allegations. And Brianna, hop in and let me know if I need, or anyone, if I should explain the difference between interventions, investigations. Otherwise, I'm sorry?
You're good. Keep going.
Okay. 8 investigations. Of those investigations, we did not have any substantiated investigations. As per the last, I've been doing this 17-ish, 16-ish years, or maybe, and we just never know what our numbers are going to be. They hover around here, but it really just depends on census. So that number 39 is, and this is the state report that you're seeing too. So this is what we hand out to the state every year. We did have, out of those 39, we removed our no code complaints or are out of our jurisdiction. If a patient has a complaint about something that happened in the emergency department prior to the patients coming on to our unit, that's considered a grievance. So we handle that through our CMS, Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services grievance process. That's not a recipient rights complaint. Patient can have the same complaint on 6 West that we consider the recipient rights complaint. Out of our jurisdiction could be, and it was a year that we received quite a few of these. For example, things that happen at the patient's home, we cannot investigate. So those would be out of our jurisdiction. If it makes sense for us to forward those complaints on to the patient's county, if the patient's a client at a different county, we would certainly forward those on. But a very typical year for us. We had some dignity and respect complaints. We had a few suitable services complaints where patients feel they were not getting the medication they should have been, or maybe they didn't want the medication that was being administered at the time. Some patients had restricted phone use, and that would certainly generate a complaint depending on how the recipient, the patient's doing. Did you want to?
Looks good, Jen. Just FYI, before you submit it to the state, you'll have to put zeros in all of the boxes. Every box
Okay.
needs to be filled, so you'll want to do that. Otherwise, they'll probably kick it back to you.
Okay, and this is a new, the state gave us kind of a new design of this report. So, okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Brianna serves as our mentor. She's our go-to for questions, and we'll often have her review our investigations. Certainly if they're Ottawa County clients, but Brianna will often, she's kind enough to lend us her time for questions and just general recipient rights concerns that we may want to run by her. So thank you for that. Part of presenting this report, our data to you, is to make sure that, we're funded, our office is funded, we can do what we need to do here to protect our recipients. And the administration and leadership is very supportive of this role. So that's something that we need to come to this group to make sure that this role is funded to protect the rights of our recipients.
Thanks, Jen.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Suggested motion is to approve the Holland Hospital's annual report. So we'll entertain that motion.
Supported.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jen.
you. Next is our quarterly report, attachment A. And I think that's you.
That's me. Do you need me to project, or you have it in your packet? You're probably. Okay.
Yeah.
So the quarterly report summarizes complaints from September, October, and November. I can't say there's anything out of ordinary in any of the months, but you can see we opened 3 in September, closed 5, opened 4, closed 7 in October, and then opened 7 closed 0 in November. Corrective action that comes back seems to always be appropriate. I think it's taken a lot of years to get our providers to understand the difference between remedial action and disciplinary action. Remedial action can be requested when there's any rights violation that doesn't include abuse or neglect. When there's abuse, neglect, retaliation, harassment, we require disciplinary action, and that just elevates the beginning of what can happen to staff, which would at minimum is a written reprimand. So, you know, if somebody had a dignity and respect violation, they could realistically just get verbal coaching from their supervisor because it may be their first offense, or they could get employment termination depending on if they have other personnel things going on, etc. So complaints are coming in, complaints are being closed within the 90-day time frame or shorter. And yeah, incident reports are still coming in. Some are coming in electronically straight to me, and then I route them to the treatment team. Others are being routed like they used to via the mail, or some providers dropped off incident reports. So still monitoring incident reports. Occasionally you'll get a rights complaint that you have questions about that I will open from an incident report, but otherwise staff have been really good about just filing complaints when there's a complaint. So ongoing meetings are happening, mostly virtual, except for some of our internal meetings that we have. And then classes are still being taught online through Network 180. It just seems to really work for staff to get them into the training sooner. Network 180 is gracious enough to just do it. They don't care if there's 4 people there or 400 people part of the virtual training. It's been a really, really nice way to get more people trained versus having seats in a classroom. I keep offering to take my spot in a rotation for the training, and they keep declining. And they're like, no, we'll save you for when we need you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But Lynn and I always talk, you know, do we need to have classroom trainings, etc. And we just keep evaluating. It just seems to just really be working well with the online training. And then with the improving MI practices, training that's online, that's been a really nice option for staff because they're not just strictly required to take the class when Network 180 is having it. They can do it as it works into their schedule. And yeah, they can start and stop it if they don't have 4 hours to do it. So it's been really, really good. And I've looked at the training because we have to track to make sure staff are getting trained within 30 days. And I feel like our numbers are much, much better with providers getting their new staff in for training.
Right. Do you think that attachment A is going to be?
For what would you like to see?
I don't know. Is that a bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
Or you all go at it. You don't want to submit anything.
Yours is probably
Send
good.
a PDF.
Mine's good.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. I don't know what happened.
It's really interesting because I had another funky thing happen when I converted something to a PDF.
Oh,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
I thought I might have been, I put it on my.
Sure.
If I can make it up, I don't know.
Yeah.
Match up.
It's interesting because there was something else that I was trying to change to a PDF and I had to manipulate it a
See,
little bit. And I
Patricia,
didn't
maybe I better
notice
go
that.
back to the Times New Roman.
I didn't notice that.
We had font discussions today. She was like, I don't like the font you choose. And I was like, okay, well, tell me what you want.
It's not really how I went.
No,
said,
I know.
just changed.
We'll fix that.
Yeah.
when
Yes.
these get
Yeah.
posted.
Yes.
Brianna, did you share this with the LRE regionally, or is this part of theirs because they went through it at the last LRE board meeting and they had very similar here, and I don't know if this is inclusive of that or not.
I don't share it with the LRE. The only thing that I send to the Lakeshore Regional entity is our annual abuse and neglect reporting numbers. Because recipient rights is strictly a community mental health service provider function. The LRE doesn't have any oversight or say in how recipient rights works.
Mhm.
I do know they have to report some monitoring things,
Mhm.
but yeah, I just recently sent them some abuse and neglect reporting numbers. So I don't know what else they're using.
Mhm.
Maybe critical
Yeah.
incidents
Grievances too.
for grievances, yeah.
Okay, okay.
We're doing a charge of critical incidents too, so that might be kind of confusing when they say that came from Brianna or.
Okay,
What is environmental repair?
So that one included a bathroom that was really,
Physical,
yeah, like not working well, really gross and dirty and the,
But it is has to. facility.
yes. Yep, I think in that particular incident, the recipients are sort of responsible for maintaining their own restrooms in their bedrooms.
Mhm.
And staff were not checking to make sure that was being done. And so this particular person's restroom got into really bad situation. And it needed some repairs as a result. So,
Do they address that with their staff? They're
yeah,
not doing
yes,
what it's supposed to be doing.
yeah.
So monitoring.
Yeah. And that, like the environmental modifications, like they added a checklist for specific shifts on the staff. Yeah. Yes,
that was quarterly.
that was quarterly.
Now you're gonna do the annual,
Now I will do the annual,
all right?
which is also attached to your agenda.
Mhm.
Similar to what Jen presented, they had 8 investigations. I had 45 for the year. 55 complaints that came in. And so you see the difference between the 55 and the 45 based on the no code involved, like Jen was explaining, or the out of provider jurisdiction. So there was 10 total. So that's why that takes that 55 complaints down to 45 allegations. And that's why you'll see only 45 investigations. Because again, like Jen said, sometimes a recipient will file a complaint about their brother or their sister, and they're not a paid staff. So I can't investigate that. That's a no code. Sometimes I'll get complaints about the time that the recipient spent at Holland Hospital. Well, that would be out of my provider jurisdiction, and I would refer that complaint to Holland Hospital. Or, we have a provider in Ottawa County, but they serve probably 20 different counties. So sometimes the recipients see my poster, call me when they should be calling Detroit Wayne or someone else. So that again would be a provider out of jurisdiction example.
Often you call protective service, either children's protective service or adult. Is that something that enters in quite often, or is that outside of the?
Nope. I don't necessarily work with Children's Protective Services, but I do work fairly closely on certain situations where Adult Protective Services is involved. Sometimes I open an investigation and they decline an investigation. But if we have a mutual client that we're doing an investigation for, we work together in addition to Laura. So like if it's an adult foster care home, the licensing consultant, Adult Protective Services and Rights, we all work together. So you'll see 45 investigations, 24 of those investigations were substantiated. I feel like there was a great deal of investigations. You'll see in the neglect category, neglect class 3. And that is when a staff person isn't following a rule, a law, a policy, a guideline, an individual plan of service, a behavior plan that potentially could put someone at risk of harm. All of those, there was nothing bad that happened to the recipient, but there was a potential for risk to happen. So 12 investigations, 10 of them were substantiated. So that could mean a behavior plan wasn't followed. If there's one-on-one supervision and that recipient, you know, decides to take a little stroll a couple blocks away, well, where was the one-on-one staffing, for example? So that would be a substantiated neglect class 3. And I feel like we had more of those this year than we have in the past.
You ever run into any conflicts when someone does their own self-directed service and then they're going outside of the box themselves and then you have to pull them back in for that, or is that never part of the case?
I don't know. I think sometimes there's just maybe safeguards that aren't in place that are normally in place at a licensed
Okay.
facility that you just share with that person to say, well, you know, maybe this could help make money safer or whatever.
Okay.
But nothing out of the ordinary. Sorry, I got this darn cough that won't go away. Out of the 24 that were substantiated, the other that you have to send to the state is the remedial or disciplinary action page. And so I scanned that into the PDF. So all 24 on here, I counted twice to make sure there were 24 on here. And then, like I said, the state wants to make sure that if there's a neglect or abuse allegation, that disciplinary action was taken. So at least a written reprimand. And you can see by the neglect and abuse, I mean, many employment terminations. Many written reprimands, a lot of employees left, but still the rights violation was established, was substantiated.
And that goes with them, even if they go through
Goes
the-
on my record, yep.
but
So
not
if another
necessarily
county,
when another county calls you or something.
I guess I would share that. Because all of us counties have a recipient rights checklist, like a consent form for new hires.
Mhm.
And if staff are honest, they'll write what counties they've worked in, and then we can reach out to Network 180 or Allegan or the Upper Peninsula. And, you know, if somebody's indicated that they've worked in that county. Also attached to the annual report is trainings I have participated in. I think that's the next one. If not, it's trainings we've conducted, but I am required by contract to have so many continuing education credits per year approved by MDHHS ORR. And so many of those credits are received from the annual recipient rights training that the state puts on. I also do participate occasionally in the Recipient Rights Officers Association of Michigan meetings. And those also provide continuing education credits in recipient rights. I probably have some leadership training under my social work license that I could apply for, but I probably have enough from other years that'll qualify in my next assessment. So, which is coming up this following year in June or July, I believe. And then, go ahead.
MSW and clinical social work,
What'd you say?
you?
I have a bachelor's in social work, yeah. Yep. And then you'll see the number of staff that went through online training, either through Network 180 or the Improving MI Practices Rights training. And then we regionally put together an annual recipient rights update, and that's also on there, and all staff are required to take that. And it's really cool to see our agency staff number continue to grow. I remember when it dropped down under 100, so. And then you have outcomes. I just kind of brought over last year's outcomes into this year. I thought they were pretty good. just monitoring the incident reports that come in, any trends that we see. And that could be from critical incidents also. But nothing, we still want staff to be trained. We still want to do well in our assessment. And then we are working on a new site review process internally through the region. So that's going to get worked out with the 5 of our region counties rights offices, because the LRE is not doing rights visits anymore. So we're going to work on a system so we can all kind of have some reciprocity. So our providers aren't being visited by all 5 of us. And then there's a recommendation to send this, approve it here at this committee and send it to the full board for review and approval.
Where we have a motion of approval, is there any questions that anyone has of Brianna, either regarding the full report or some of the training or such? Okay, well, the suggested motion is to accept the annual report as presented. Forward it.
Support.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. That was attachment B. Old business? No. Any public comment?
You have to go through the
Policies.
trainings, right?
Oh,
Oh, you
Or the
can do it.
policies.
no changes in the policies. As you can see, I've met the end of the year and I've gone through the entire attachment that the state sends me to make sure we have everything covered in our policies. Every single one has a blank filled in, and I have it all typed out and nice, so it's not handwritten. If anybody would like to see that, I would absolutely share that. But no changes, and these are pretty standard policies with change in treatment, freedom of movement, communication, telephone and visitors. It just makes me realize, like, communication, telephone and visitors, how obsolete the Michigan Mental Health Code is in some ways. You know, I mean, daily newspapers, we don't really have a lot of people getting daily newspapers anymore. Internet isn't a right, that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll catch up.
But there are no revisions.
No revisions. Nope. Just new dates.
I don't think we need a motion on that.
No.
Just for informational purposes.
Does that confuse other people because we show a revised date of 12/19/22? And so I'm questioning, why do we show a revised date if there is in fact no revisions to the policy?
Or should we just say a
It's a date.
I should change it to
It says
review
revised.
date.
Oh, it should say review.
Mhm.
I will change it. Start over in January or March. Sorry. I'm not coming in January. I'm coming back in March. Good suggestion.
Any public comment?
We have somebody with their hand up.
Hello, it's Rosalie Oscar. I had today 457 West 21st Street. And I would like to talk about the Girl for Culturally Competent Hair Care in the group home. The recipient rights that I filed for that was returned saying that I needed to know who the girl was, her name, and where she lives, something to that effect. But how am I supposed to know who she is other than what was in the newspaper printed? But obviously, was there any follow-up? Is she getting the services she needs now? Does she have able to get her hair cared at the group home she resides? And then also, what about a 504 ADA coordinator for CMH? Other CMHs have that role. And could it be a contracted out one? Because I find it kind of difficult to believe there's only, what, 55 recipient rights complaints for the year when there's, what, 2,000 consumers served? That kind of seems like a low number. And my feeling is that recipient rights is the conflict of interest involved in the system because it's internal affairs. And that a lot of people are afraid to do recipient rights, and other people who have done recipient rights actually laugh and say, it's a waste of time because nothing happens.
Okay. Rosalie, Lynn will follow up with you, and Patricia was typing up those notes and your comments.
And then another comment to piggyback off that, there is the DEI person for the county. Why isn't she investigating some of this that's happening at CMH?
Okay, all right, we'll follow up on that also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands up on
I
public
don't see,
comment?
no, I see nothing.
We adjourned our recipient rights advisory committee meeting. And immediately go into community mental health board meeting. So we'll officially call that meeting to order. And Mr. Dannenberg will do the invocation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be Matt and mine last meeting. It'll be my last invocation too for a while. So anyway, would you pray with me, please? Dear Lord, we come to you on this afternoon. The Mental Health Meeting Board for December of 2020. Dear Lord, what we pray for is when new leadership comes over for the county and they come in here, that they think of the people that are dealing with mental issues. That it's not a quick fix or it's a snap of your finger, oh, that's done. Dear Lord, we know that a lot of people are struggling with different issues, and it's not an easy fix on this. So dear Lord, be with them, guide them, show them mercy and respect. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Please make note of our mission and our vision statements. And this is our first opportunity for our board meeting for public comment. There is no public comment at the first public comment segment, so we'll move right into our consent items. The motion is to approve the agenda for today, as well as approval of the November 28th Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda and the minutes indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. We have a presentation. A number of people. We
I
have,
just want to introduce Amy Avery. She's our program evaluator at PY. So she's going to be presenting the satisfaction survey.
visual aid.
Everything was included.
Okay, you should be able to, this Windows key.
Okay.
Everybody else.
It's a big
Come here and watch the Super Bowl. huh?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
We're having a party.
Actually, my uncle got one about that day. Yeah. I got a 50 at my house.
Here.
Mr. Geek Squad himself.
Yeah.
Yes.
So click over in your.
All right. All right, so I conducted the satisfaction survey. and I'm going to go over the results with you. And what we used was the standardized Lakeshore Regional Satisfaction Survey. And this measured in 6 different areas. It measured in access, availability, quality measures, outcome measures, long-term services, telehealth services, and overall outcomes measures. And each of the questions had 6 different values. It would be for 6 would be strongly agree, 5 agree, 4 mildly agree, 3 mildly disagree, 2 disagree, 1 strongly disagree, or not applicable. And here is an example of the survey that we had sent out. The top, you would get what kind of service they were getting and how long they had been getting, and their demographics. And then it goes through the different key areas using that 6-point scale. And then if the person being surveyed wanted to, they can comment on there. And then if they had any problems with their services, they could indicate yes or no. And then they could be followed up by providing their name and number. And then the other survey that we sent out was the BTRC survey. And this was sent to consumers that have behavior treatment plans and are being reviewed by our Behavior Treatment Review Committee. And this one only has 8 questions, but it goes through strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, not applicable. This one you can also write comments if you want to, and then if you have any concerns, it's yes or no, and we'll follow up with you. And how this data was collected, we did this during a random 2-week period during the year. Like for family services, we did that in May, and for developmental disabilities, that was done in June. For mental illness, that was done in July. For BTRC, we did that in August. And for the substance use disorders, we did that the beginning of September. And for mental illness, developmental disabilities, BTRC, and family services, we sent paper versions of the satisfaction surveys through the mail with an enclosed return envelope. And for the substance use disorder services, we had 2 different methods that we used. There was an online version that we created through Qualtrics, or there is a paper version. In the paper, both versions were given out to the sub-providers, and we used Reach for Recovery, Arbor Circle, Samaritas, Wedgwood, and Western Michigan Comprehensive Treatment Center. And the sub-providers, they emailed the survey link to the consumers that were being seen virtually. And the online survey was only active during the random 2-week period. And then there was a follow-up email sent 1 week into the survey. And the sub-providers gave a copy of the paper survey to the consumers when they came in for their appointments. And then after the completed surveys were collected the day after the end of the 2-week period, I went out and collected them myself. And for the results of how many that we did, for developmental disabilities, we sent out 471 and we received 121 back. For family services, we sent out 481 and we received only 45 back. For mental illness, we sent out 599 and we only received 75 back. For SUD, we sent out 200 and we received 94 back. For BTRC, we sent out 55, but then we only received 6 back.
What did you think of
Yeah.
that category? I mean, compared to other years or?
Yep, we actually have a comparison on this next screen. Yeah.
All right.
We were kind of curious to see how it added up versus last year. So I went through and checked out last year's results to compare it to this year's to see how we did. It looked like for most of the categories, we actually increased, but there was 2 categories that we kind of went down in. And that was in telehealth and then long-term housing. But here, I'll show you a visual that's a little more easier to see than just the numbers. I actually did some bar graphs with blue being last year and then orange being this year. And yeah, you can see the areas that we're kind of down in with telehealth. And it looks like it was with people kind of struggling with getting help with telehealth or actually being able to use it.
We used a lot of telehealth.
We did.
When we had the pandemic, right? You know,
Right.
that was the only function that we could use basically, right?
Right.
We're still seeing some people in person, but mostly telehealth services. I think, though, Matt, your question might have been before, what was the rate of return? In previous years, the year before, it was slightly higher, but not tremendously. Correct?
Let me write some.
Yeah, okay. You do a survey, you know, what is the percentage you hope to get back? I mean, you know you're not gonna get 100% back.
Right.
You know, there's some surveys that, well,
Most surveys are happy if they get about 30%.
30%, okay, that's, I don't know. So the SUD did very well.
Right.
And that telehealth. That was a little puzzling.
Right.
was really low, 6 in the state.
Yeah, but you know, the telehealth was pretty high last year in 21. So why did we go down with telehealth? I mean, I think that would have gone up. Some people would have found that kind of nice to use, but
I think people, a lot of, in the first 2 years of COVID, people didn't really have a choice. So I think they were making the best of what they could, given that we were told not to leave your house if you could help it. So I think in 2021, 2020, in 2022, by then people know that they can come in if they want to. Telehealth is still offered, but I think people, they like having the options. They like having some telehealth and some in person. Some people want all in person. So I think probably 2022's numbers are a better reflection of whether people really want to do telehealth or not.
Comment on the average scores, you might want to go back and look at the numerical values that you're using on the telehealth to generate your bar graph. Because we show the indicator for 2022 better than 21. But when you go to your detail, all of the 22 indicators are less than 21. All the others are, all the other ones are pretty consistent with what the details are showing. So I suspect there's just a bit there. Take a look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Get that changed.
And then the next thing that we looked at was how we compared to the other CMHs in our region. And unfortunately, we don't have any data on Health West. And then if you look at LRE on there, that is the average of all the CMHs together. And overall, we're pretty much like comparable to the rest of the CMHs. The only areas that were a little different than them is our telehealth is lower than the rest, but our long-term services were higher than the rest. And I'll show you the bar graphs though, but better illustrate that. And we're the ones in the gray here. And then LRE is the light blue here, which is the average. So as you can see, yeah, telehealth again, gray. the lowest compared to the others. But then long-term services are much higher. All right, and now breaking apart the different services. For mental illness, the overall satisfaction out of 6 was 4.99. 83% of the people surveyed strongly agreed or agreed. 12% were neutral. 2% strongly disagreed and 3% disagreed. And some examples of the comments that were received on the surveys. All of the staff have been helpful, kind, and knowledgeable. I am disabled and can barely walk or stand. I'm happy that they were able to make accommodations to have my appointments by telephone. It took them 2 months to call me back to make an appointment and 4 months to get an appointment for medication. I am impressed with the depth and knowledge of my counselor. She gives good advice for every problem I face. I'm satisfied with the treatment I received for my illness, but feel there is a lack of communication between the staff at CMH and my PCP. I am glad CMH is here. They have helped me so much.
PC primary care.
Primary care physician.
Physician, okay.
Yes. And here is the overall for SUD. Overall satisfaction score was 5.29 out of 6. 87% strongly agreed or agreed. 10% were neutral. 3% strongly disagreed or disagreed. And some of the comments that we received on those surveys. No judgment, counselors are very accepting and truly care about you as an individual. Everyone was very helpful. Service was provided in a timely manner. I would like it if we could bring back one-on-one therapy and more groups. The biggest issue is transportation from Holland to the clinic for service. There used to be a bus for a short time, wish they brought it back, so I don't have to worry about getting access to medication and therapy. My counselor has been really helpful and is a good listener. He seems very passionate about recovery and has a good energy to him.
Transportation issue. What are they talking about? Because there is Max, or where's the clinic? Where are they?
We used to have, we had a grant for a short time to provide transportation from our offices to the methadone clinic, the MAT provider, and no, almost no one used it.
Oh, okay.
There was often one person on the bus, and the grant ran out.
So how far are we talking? Where are we talking? Where's?
Granville.
Yeah, the West Michigan Comprehensive Therapy Development, Granville.
So if you live in
Oh,
Holland,
okay.
and then there was a bus going from Grand Haven to Muskegon as well.
Okay. Okay.
But we work with people to try to make things.
All right, and here is the overall satisfaction with the DD population. The overall satisfaction score was a 5 out of 6. 82% strongly agreed or agreed. 14% were neutral. 2% strongly disagreed and 2% disagreed. Some of the comments received on these surveys. I am satisfied with my child's current PCP goals and appreciate it was able to be handled by a conference call led by our coordinator. I like telehealth for some of the services, such as check-ins and some social involvement. Please do not take it away. I use it 30 to 40% of the time and feel safer. There is a shortage of staff workers, and it's been very difficult to get staff. Our son has special circumstances, and it has been hard to find programs that are suitable for him. Also, there aren't many housing options, very limited. Staff have been very helpful, no complaints. You're doing a great job. That kind of goes along the line where we saw kind of a low number in the housing area. All right, so the overall satisfaction of family services, they got a 4.92 out of 6, where 77% strongly agreed or agreed, 16% were neutral, 7% disagreed or strongly disagreed. some of the comments that were received on the surveys. I appreciate the quickness to get me into the facility and getting my son evaluated. Our supports coordinator is awesome. She is very helpful and easy to talk to. I wish there were more services to pick from for children with special needs. They only offer 2 services that I've been made aware of. We've gotten more help from CMH in the last several years than we did trying to find our own providers. We are very pleased.
Information shared with, staff.
Yes,
So they
yes.
can see it.
For the BTRC, for our 6 surveys that were sent in, they got a 4.22 out of 5 for 100% strongly agreed or agreed, 0% neutral, 0% disagree or strongly disagree. A couple comments that we've received on the surveys. CMH has been consistent with communication and plans. Staff follow through. Appreciate and enjoy the team approach given to my clients by OCCMH. And there were 0 surveys requesting follow-up. Some of our action plans is that I shared all the reports with the team program supervisors that have all the comments on them. And then I also sent all the follow-ups to the program supervisors to address. Then I discussed at leadership the appropriate target areas based on the 5 areas of improvement: accessibility, availability, quality measures, outcome measures, long-term services, telehealth services. And they will be implementing a new survey next year. The LRE is currently working on it right now. And then our last action item is to follow up on ways to increase response rates. There was a drop in responses this year compared to last. I did a little table of like how many surveys were actually completed versus last year. For DD, there's 37%, and it dropped to 25.6% this year. For family services, that actually went up 1 from 8% to 9%. For mental illness, it dropped from 15% to 12.5%. For SUD, it actually went up from 16% to 47%. For BTRC, that one dropped from 31% to 10%.
BRC again.
It's a behavior treatment review committee. It's the consumers that have behavior treatment plans that get reviewed quarterly.
In my opinion, I think if people were really upset
Past history would support that statement.
What kind of, I mean, if you don't have a problem with something, you don't say anything about it, So,
We try to make it as easy as we can. We send out paper copies with return envelopes. We're always open to trying different methods to have people fill things out. So many people want that to go and it's as many people as possible to fill it out,
Yeah.
happy or not. It's helpful for us to know where those concerns are so we can do something about it.
and for ladies, I met with you this summer.
People return it person. Drop it to them.
They
Yeah, and they drop off.
mail it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes, it's anonymous, or sometimes people give their names.
But I'm just wondering if they're encouraged to drop it off somewhere instead of mailing.
Yeah, the return envelopes have our address already on there.
We might have gotten a few people bring them in with them when, at their next appointment, but that's not typically the way people turn it in.
Now, the one where we got the highest rate, it was actually given to the patients that they came in for the side. So I don't know if we want to start incorporating that later, like for the other populations.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what else are they gonna do?
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
you do have them. Good point. Well, thank you, Amy.
You're very welcome.
Very
It's
nice.
nice meeting all of you.
No old business. And new business is attachment B. Tina? Hi.
Present today. First one is HR Alliance. This is a new contract, similar to other SIs, to provide physical intermediary services for managing software transition budgets. I have two SGD amendments for two SGD providers, Samaritas and Research Company. And that is for grant. The one we have currently in place, and those two provide mental health management treatment and have additional funding available.
Any questions regarding our contracts? Gentlemen?
Then just on the HR Alliance, is this going to help with also budgets or?
Families can have another choice now. So now we'll have three fiscal intermediaries that families can pick. They pick their own.
Looking for a motion to approve their service contracts for today.
So moved.
All those in favor of approving the 2022 service contracts as presented indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Next is our financial report.
I'll start with attachment C, going over the statement of activity through November 30th. This statement, we continue to be in a good financial position. You'll see budget to actual. Actually, we did receive revenues for October. We're still, expenses are down a bit through November because we were processing fiscal year 22 claims through the end of the first month. So we've caught up with that. We'll be reporting, balancing. Some of those numbers will level out as we increase our claims processing and as we wrap up the fiscal year 22 budget. We have grant dollars that have been coming in from our different funding sources, and receiving payments for the fiscal year. But continue to be in a good net position, and like I said, the Medicaid funding will balance out more once we are processing strictly fiscal year 23 claims. We have a couple, we'll show in the village fund, there is a deficit posted now, but that's related to a budget adjustment that is going to address here in a second. And everything's on track and on budget. Questions?
I've got one more question.
Yep.
I think this has to do with fiscal year. Property taxes that we take in for the millage says 4.3. Close to 3.5 that we took in.
Well, yes, it is from last year. It was 3.5. This is what the treasurer projected for fiscal year 23. Our budget came from a treasury projection.
Oh, this is gonna be for 23.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you're getting a big increase.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It's in the mail.
Something you wanted to address.
Sure.
We need a motion.
We'll finish up this little guy first. We'll finish up. So I need a motion to approve attachment C.
Supported.
All those in favor of approval of attachment C indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Now you can go to town.
All right. I have two adjustments for HCA, both of them in the fund. The first is $1 million from ARPA for a new grant for prescribing for professional recruitment and retention. A fund that's gonna be managed by CMH with a goal of attracting 6 to 10 new prescribing professionals to Ottawa County. So that'll be covered through ARPA funds, so that's added to our village. And then 20,000, this is coming out of our fund balance. This will be adding 3 additional scholarships to attend the Cherry Street Clubhouse. They currently have 6 enrolled, and I would like to add 3 more.
Any questions? I do remember the $1 million ARPA one.
Yeah, I guess I got a little question. This is not crazy, but it says it's operating transfers in. Is that what am I correct on that?
Yep, that's what they're classifying.
Okay.
For
They,
initiatives.
okay, they can't put ARPA in there? The word ARPA, so that, you know, when someone reads it, they see that it's ARPA money. You get what I'm saying? This doesn't look like it's, like, I don't know, it's coming out of Parks and Recreation. They're moving money over to here. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that,
Yeah, we're using a field in the general ledger that's already.
Yeah,
defined,
I
and
understand
so
that.
I know,
I
we should put ARPA in the parentheses.
Yeah, that's right. So that you would see that. And then people, would- even next year would say, well, where'd that $1 million come from?
Yeah, I can bring it back.
To show the source of funds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is being kept separately in
I-
separate lines. So if
I know.
people wanted to actually see that detail, we would be able to show it.
It's not coming from the parks.
It's not.
Okay.
Well, we got plenty of money.
But if they got extra money, they want to get rid of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Jason would say something about that.
all right, the suggested motion here for attachment B is to approve the CMH budget amendment number 2 as presented.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. And then recipient rights annual report. That is attachment E in front of you. And we'll need a motion for approval for that also.
So moved.
All those in favor of approval of the recipient rights annual report indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. And then right at the beginning, we had our Holland Hospital annual report, so we'll need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And then in front of you, I think you have a attachment F, which is the meeting schedule.
I don't know if those dates work.
I don't care. There's a couple, there's a couple anomalies. The October meeting is a week later because of the board association. It's moved to October 30th, and then the December meeting is a week before, the 3rd week instead of the 4th. Everything else, I think, is the 4th.
You got the organizational meeting on April.
Yep.
You're gonna move that to January?
No, we won't. No, the bylaws and the mental health code require it in April. So, or the Michigan Mental Health Code, it's required to be in April, and our bylaws do April. So from January to January, February, and March, our vice chair will take the chair. Yeah, and then, and by then, and so, yeah. The terms, the actual board member terms, other than the commissioners, run April 1st to March 31st.
Okay.
So,
Good. Thank you.
Good question.
I'm just wondering what's happening. after that.
So we'll need a motion for approval of the board meeting schedule. as
So
presented.
moved.
All those in favor of approval of attachment F indicate by saying aye. Aye. Next item here is our board members' self-assessment results, attachment G. And
This is the opposite, the Likert.
It's a little interesting
It's a
here.
little confusing.
Yeah, it is. I realized that afterwards and I'm like going, and I don't know why, and it's just, this is the way we've always done it, and I was gonna switch it up, then I'm like going, oh, it'd be really confusing, so low number is good, high number not so. good. So,
High number strongly.
yes.
Yeah.
Right, so I think next year I will change that too. I know, you're concerned. I know, right? You guys, come on, step it up.
Well, there's a lot of low numbers here. so
It was,
okay. Very good.
Yep.
We got that finance committee slashed out of there.
Yes.
we took-
I think
cleaned
what I
that
did,
up.
for those of you that did mark that, I just changed, I think I changed it in the result. I said board instead of finance
Yep.
committee. So I just took that to mean the board. So I took some poetic license. with me.
I like that. This design.
This is really an internal document.
Okay.
It's part of our accreditation requirements that we do this on an annual basis.
Okay.
But certainly if you wanted to share it with someone else, we could do that.
Just asking.
Yeah.
It is included in the packet on the website. So if anybody, I mean, it's not, so.
I have a quick question on the scoring. Was the number 9 responses?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
How do we get some of the numbers on our averages? Because wasn't it a 1 through 5?
Right, but if you look at the top, it says where there was no response, where it was left blank or there was no response.
So some of them
So like
were got it.
Yes, there were
perfect.
some,
That makes sense.
and I don't
Thank you.
include, I don't include something that's not filled in the average. So some of them could have, some of them were 8, some of them were 9, some of them were
Gotcha.
7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Got it.
And I have the raw data. If anybody wants to see it, I'm happy to share it. So.
Smart.
Thank you.
Wonder who did that. Oh, boy. So anyway, that's, we'll move on to our Lynn's executive report.
Okay, I'll give you some updates from the state. I've sent you a couple emails in the last week or so, updating you on the Senate bills and the House bills. None of those managed to make it through. There was some last minute attempts to pass a version of Senator Shirkey's bills, but it didn't make it out of Senate. So for now anyway, we're okay. There's no doubt that next year or the coming years, that someone else might take up the charge with making some significant changes to the public mental health system. And we'll deal with that when it comes our way. I've said this all along. It's not that the system is not wanting to change. By all means, we want to improve the system to the best of our ability. But I think it has to be done in a way that makes sense, includes lots of consumer and family input, and causes no harm or minimal harm. So like I always do, I will keep you informed if anything comes up in the near future with some plans to push those through either of our bodies of legislature. last month I let you know that we were working on a couple block grant applications, including a grant for Children's Mobile Crisis, and also for our adults with mental illness to help with advertising and recruiting. We received both of those grants. And so we'll be rolling those out in the next couple of months. From the Lakeshore Regional entity, I've been trying to keep you informed about that historic deficit from a couple of years ago. Some of the CMHs are owed pretty substantial amounts of money. So the LRE has been trying to get an answer on whether or not they can use current funding to pay some of those past liabilities. Right now, in the DEC action that was filed, that's hopefully to get a judge to weigh in whether or not we in fact can use those dollars. The summons disposition is scheduled for January 23rd. So hopefully we'll get an answer, or we'll get closer to an answer then. I think I let you know that because of some issues going on between Network 180 and the LRE, they were hoping to have some formal mediation take place. That was scheduled for 12/6 and was canceled by Network 180, postponed. The other thing I wanted to, I think I mentioned in the past, the LRE has contracted with Wakely, which is an actuarial service, to take a closer look at our rates. You know enough about our finances to know that throughout the years, our rates have fluctuated, some to the good, some to the bad. We're hoping that by having an independent contract with our own actuarial service, they can really take a good look at the data that's being used and try to help us be as prepared as possible so that our rates are in the best position to bring down as much Medicaid as possible. So that's a good thing. From CMH, I wanted to definitely thank our county commissioners. Jim Holtzler resigned last month, if you recall, but him as well. You guys have done an amazing job for us and have been very supportive, so truly appreciate that. I think I speak for all of my staff and certainly the rest of the board. Yep. So Patricia mentioned Bonnie has graciously agreed to assume chair until those elections in March. So I think we'll be okay with that. And then obviously we won't know who our new commissioners are on this board until after the county commissioners do their assignments. And that'll be sometime in January.
Which commissioners meeting would they typically do that at? The very first one in January?
They have their organizational meeting on January 3, and that just sets the chairperson and vice chairperson, but they'll probably do their assignments the first meeting in January, which is maybe 12, 13, something like that.
Mhm. I can give you the exact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you know when that is. So we have scheduled a couple of roundtable discussions in the next couple of months. We actually had our first one last Monday here in Holland. We have another one in on January 19th in Grand Haven and February 14th at 1 o'clock. So everybody can make it to their Valentine's dinner in Hudsonville. We used to do roundtable meetings back before COVID. It's a really nice way for, in a smaller group setting, people to be able to get some updates about mental health, community mental health services. It's also a really great way for me to get some input and hear how things are going. I think we had a good discussion last Monday. We have some stuff we're gonna follow up on. And there were probably 18 people in the room and maybe another 6 or 7 on the phone. So that's pretty good for us. Usually our roundtables are a little bit less than that. So Holland's also is usually one of the places that we draw the most people. So one of the things we talked about on Monday, and one of the things we've been working on, I've told you that we have an ongoing residential committee. That is definitely a place where we are getting a lot of feedback, and we know that there are concerns about really not being able to move forward on residential placements, and a lot of that has to do with staffing. I've let you guys know that before, that we don't have many beds available. When they do become available in Ottawa County, oftentimes we can't fill even those beds because our providers are truly not able to find enough staff to staff them. We, on our website, there's a survey that we're asking folks to fill out with. We're working with Disability Network of Lakeshore, also some parents in that group, trying to just get a feeling for how many people are looking for placement, when that might be, what type of alternative housing they might look for. Also, we've asked them what kind of information they might be interested before they were to make a decision about moving themselves or moving a family member. So our hope is to use this data along with some internal data that we've been collecting to really get an idea of what the need is, what type of development we can assist with as far as growing our residential options. Part of that is truly not only those short-term solutions of trying to identify additional group home placements or helping families to secure their own services. Some long-term strategies are really to continue that advocacy, to getting direct care workers pay increased. The department did come through, the legislators approved a bump up in direct care worker wages. This year they continued that, but they didn't increase it. I really truly think it needs to be increased. And there's quite a bit of advocacy out there to really get it pushed up to a place where a worker could be making on average $17 to $18 an hour. So we'll continue to work on that advocacy. And the other long-term strategy is working to really change the trajectory of that profession. I've told you about that Grand Rapids Community College certificate program, that the pilot is currently up and running, and in January, I don't know the date yet, but the plan would be to open that up to any student that was interested in participating in that, really trying to get more people to consider that as a career. So unless people have questions, I'll leave you with that.
Questions for Lynn? Okay. Thank you. General information meetings, comments, board members?
This is probably redundant after Lynn's comment, but I just want to say thank you, Matt, Al, and also Jim. It's really been a pleasure working with all of you, and we should give them a round of applause.
Yeah, I've been on this for 10 years. Started with Dr. Brashears as the director. Don Dissicone asked me to be on this board. It's one of the most say, to be very frank, very difficult at times. One thing, I call it, and Lynn knows it, a convoluted funding system. You couldn't, you know, if you weren't born on a full moon on the last Thursday of the month, you didn't get coverage. You know, it was so frustrating. And then when the state cut the funding, yeah. Did a thought of quitting occur? Yeah, because it was just so frustrating. You know, my wife said, "You don't come home happy from this meeting." I said, "No." I said, "It's all bad news." And I said, "These are people that need our help, you know, and the state isn't up there." So anyway, I want to thank you all. Sorry about that.
You know, speaking through the eyes of a parent, guys, I mean, both they have, again, I always go back to the old history, you know, my previous tenures on the board and dealings with boards. Understand the issues and that most of all care.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for that. That, you know, where we are today is just, there's just no comparison.
This board is pretty tight, pretty organized, good staff that works in this county. And
All the difference in the world.
you know, that's what really makes it. People are committed.
We had such a discomfort, and some of that was driven because you had a board that and for good reason, because a lot of those staff were still here in the late 90s and early 2000s when her, well, not Brashear's predecessor was.
A little bit about that from Don.
That was
Special.
stands out. Well, Lynn was on staff at that time. That's when you shifted and went over the
I did.
public health.
Needed a breath of fresh air.
For a few of us, when we heard that, we went, damn.
Well, this is our second opportunity for public comment.
Oh, somebody's got their hand raised. Oh, yeah.
Unmute. Hello, it's Rosalie Austin again, and I do want to thank Lynn for the roundtable opportunity. We did have a great group discussion and more is needed, and I would like to see virtual participation for the roundtable discussions because a lot of people don't have transportation. Some families are immunocompromised. Other people don't like to drive at night. And a lot of the families do not have any staff to watch their loved one to go in person. So that would be most appreciated. And then I appreciate the promotion of it, but still a lot of people didn't realize the announcement to participate. There's no email list. The county does have an email list, the .gov delivery. I know a lot of people said they didn't get any notification that the meetings are occurring. And then there's still no contract with the Holland Aquatic Center. And why does it even need a contract for the health endowment grant funding? It's been months and months and months. And I still don't understand why there's still no membership to the Aquatic Center. Yeah, gift cards are being bought with grant funding. It doesn't take a contract to buy gift cards, so it makes no sense to me. And then when is the CARF accreditation happening? Because that public comment is allowed for that also, but we don't know when that happens.
It's in June.
Will that be posted so we know that we have that opportunity?
Sure. Yep, we'll put it on our website.
Good. So that's all I got again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rosalie, are you playing cards?
Oh, it's,
Seems like you're shuffling.
I'm multitasking, giving my girl a cracker, mini teddy bear grant cramp.
Okay, all right.
But put,
Well, Merry Christmas to you and you enjoy your family during this holiday season, okay? And thank you for your comments.
well, thank you for your service and hopefully things can only get better.
Absolutely.
And Beth Larson just says best wishes to Matt and Al. Thank you for your service to our county. So,
Yeah. And Al.
Any other comments from our board members? Are we all set? We'll stand adjourned.
Thank you.